Hello, this is Dr. Garrett Castleberry, Associate Professor, Program Director of Communication, Media, and Ethics at Mid-America Christian University, and I'm here to engage in our students that have been writing thoughtful questions with regards to our weekly readings in COM 2143, Digital Media Literacy. Digital media literacy is a class where we push students to tackle a lot of content on several strategic fronts with regards to helping us introduce ideas, but also gain a sense of not only digital media literacy, but what other scholars call critical media literacy. A digital emphasis on information literacy. And so there are several interrelated like terms that we are helping to equip students with and for, and certainly gear us or orient us toward a type of training that can enhance how we not only look at media, but how we think about media, not only the media choices that we make, but what effects media has on us and those around us. And let's face it, people, we are in a digital media world, right? We're inhabiting it. We play a role. You can view your role as very small or perhaps very large. Arguably, we would each be surprised at how much media we are engaging with, often passively, but sometimes quite actively, especially if it's involving topics we are interested in or passionate about. And so we have several books orienting us through this course. And you all have written questions primarily in week 3, drawing from Marcel Denise's Popular Culture, Introductory Perspectives, I believe the 4th edition, just over my shoulder to my right. And then Spreadable Media, creating value in a networked culture, networked society, from Henry Jenkins, Sam Ford, and Joshua Green. And we were having overlap between these works. Of course, we've also been looking at Linda Spencer's Writing Well in the 21st Century. Each of these provides valuable orientation for us. And hopefully you're appreciating the dexterity in which each reaches or expresses ideas in different directions, but also opportunities for overlap. And that can be an exciting process to see that overlap unfold. Let's get into your questions. Speaking of overlap, I want to engage as many of them as I can, hopefully with as much brevity as I can provide without losing the luster of the significance of the questions. You all ask important questions, valuable ones, questions we should be asking and processing. And so that's important to keep in mind. It's important part of that educational experience. And if we are lucky enough to have those of you in the major, but perhaps maybe those just dropping in for an elective or two, in some of our upper level courses, this engagement, what we call a digital dialogue, right, is able to expand more. There are times where we are empower students to kind of voice their questions and even create the responses in our video discussion segments. But in a classroom setting, absolutely, we love using this assignment as a breakout session, right? And which also funnels into a larger dialogue, talking about convergence. Well, let's get into some questions here. I want to start with a couple from Gina. I'm grateful for Gina's words here. In Popular Culture, page 269. Nice reference, right? Nice clarity. It mentions global convergence. I am not understanding that. Could you provide more details, please? All right, so Denise's text, he's talking about global convergence, and of course, there's a different book that by Lane Crothers that we get into in our digital persuasion in the social media age course, where we're looking at how popular culture has come to represent globalization in bigger ways. But here we're talking about the intersection of, rather, Denise, popular culture and the role it plays in the world economy. This is no longer about U.S. culture and domestic interests. International trade, particularly popular culture, is prevalent, right, across the board. And we can recognize that. And media culture and technology is an extension of the entertainment industry. When we think of it, we often associate popular culture with something like the entertainment industry, maybe sports and sports entertainment as an industry, but really technology. The tech industry has increasingly overlapped in recent years. And all of these corporations, these artistic and maybe athletic expressions, they're corporately backed, right? And these corporate parents are often publicly traded, and that is an across the board thing, right? So you have international investors dipping their toes into these waters. But let's talk about really. Let's put this key term in the context of one of our other authors, Henry Jenkins, specifically. And so Denise's likely drawing from a term that's really on the cusp of Henry Jenkins' body of research, and that's convergence culture, right? And convergence culture is this idea that through internet integration into our everyday lives, what used to could be potentially separated instances of the practice of community or maybe engagement with artifacts like popular culture that we might be interested in. These are becoming increasingly connected, right? And digital spaces give us that ability to connect between mediums across borders, whether they're geopolitical, or even like you think about like the invisible lines of state borders, right, and this sort of thing. We're able to break down those barriers, and economic barriers at the same time on a much larger scale are broken down as a result. So this is where we have this idea of global convergence, is that global ideas can converge now and do, and it reshapes societies, it reshapes culture. It absolutely does. Let's follow up with the next question. In spreadable media, we jump books here. Page 3, they are talking about the term spreadability and the term in relation to its stickiness. I don't understand the stickiness part. That I get the whole spreadability, and if it doesn't spread, it's dead. But why are they talking about stickiness? Great question. All right, so early on in the book, it's a very long introduction, first of all, when you really have to kind of work through. They definitely give credit to Malcolm Gladwell. Right? Very, very pretty well-known, prominent public intellectual. Written a lot of self-help books, especially the ones that they're often geared toward enabling, right, empowering maybe even businesses. When we think about kind of consultant type work in written form. And Gladwell, one of his more well-known, certainly highly circulated books is The Tipping Point. And in The Tipping Point, he is really goes to town with this term stickiness, and he's kind of helping flesh it out. It's a term that dates back a ways, right? This term it was populated in the ad world, right, to refer to the kind of message or message strategy, maybe campaign that's going to draw, right, something that's going to not just kind of be what Denise would consider a fad, but something with some staying power. In other words, it's sticky. But this has a little bit of shared meaning, right? Because it also refers to when the internet was young, things like websites were the destination. You were trying to get traffic to your website, and the website was what counted. And the more traffic getting to a website, and the longer they're staying on and active in that site, would determine its stickiness, right? Its value, in other words, like its temporal value, the time we're investing in it, which often can either result in one or two things. The longer you're on a site where it's a traditional website hub, so you're there to purchase things, right? Whether it's Amazon.com, right? Not a paid sponsor at this point in time, or some other site, you're likely to be investing, like paying in to your time there. Well, and perhaps we know of these like paywall sites, right? Where you would have to you create a sign-in account and perhaps give them, something like credit card information or whatever to get the advanced access on that website. Well, all of this, it didn't change overnight, but social media is such a dominant force, it kind of rewrote the script on that. In fact, if you get far enough into spreadable media, whether it's in this course or in the future, they talk a lot about this in their chapter covering Web 2.0, and this idea that stages of the internet have had success and failure, and what does that look like, and what are the ramifications of that. And I think that's important for us. You don't have to be a communication major or someone that is invested in media studies to appreciate the value, because that's why the Spreadable Media book is valuable for us in the major. Is this has practical applications for all of you intending to kind of work in and around small businesses, let alone maybe representation in a larger firm of some kind. And so stickiness is about the ability to draw, but let's think about things that are sticky, right? They have that adhesive nature that if I don't go, let's kind of play with different uses of the term here, right? If I step in something sticky, right? Something gets on my shoe, and it's going to make that noise. It's going to have that feel as I walk for quite a while. And I'm going to have to work to shed that adhesive quality from the shoe, just like we have to wash our hands, right? If you touch something sticky. But that's a negative, right? That could be viewed as a negative quality, and the way it's being used here is a positive, right? It's something that draws you in and it's going to sustain you, right? At least in theory, at least that's the objective. So how do we get to that objective? And I think the philosophy and explanation of phenomenon is what they're getting at with spreadability, right? Is that if stickiness was the original gold standard and for a time, it's not that it has gone away, but we need to understand and invest in the qualities of spreadability in order for stickiness to maintain value and to help a business or organization or product or idea thrive, right, in whatever its organic cycle is intended for. On page 7 in Spreadable Media, why wouldn't grassroots intermediaries, I think another term you're pulling here, be paid? Why would they be paid, these grassroots intermediaries? And that's a great question. It's a worthy question. Every business desires free labor. Like, let's just clarify that. And of course, we're also taught, in America, we should be paid for things we're good at, or we should be paid to do this. Why am I not being paid? Isn't that something we say all the time about, X role that we play in something? But if you're on the managerial or especially the ownership side of things, you desire free labor. You want to benefit from free labor. And this is a step to more powerful and cost-effective methods than traditional advertising. And so we're really getting at grassroots intermediaries is referring to the people, the persons that will take your ideas, that will take your concepts, that will take your product and be sort of vocal distributors, right? And there's a different course where we use a book. It's right behind me. I'll grab it in a minute. But Scott Goodson's Uprising, and then talk about sparking cultural movements. And you want to spark a cultural movement because you want to develop. You want your ideas to be potent enough and your techniques to be strong enough that you develop essentially a kind of fanaticism among your users, so that they're willing to kind of proselytize that message, right? All right. Final question on page 84. Linda Spencer writes that even your diary is copyrighted. Is this true? So if I had a WordPress website, for example, everything on that website that I wrote, no one could copy due to original works of authorship. All right. So where I would draw the line in the sand on that question is people copying things and borrowing things all the time. And it really comes down to what's the value of the intellectual property, right? Especially in the world of words, and that's the example we're using here, and that's certainly what Spencer's work is about. This is why we practice, style and citational significance and avoiding plagiarism, and that has to do with the ethics behind it, but also it can have to do with copyright. Yeah. Notice how we might have a book about popular culture. It's not a picture book flooded with, images from your favorite musical artists or television programs, because that material, that intellectual property or IP, is copyrighted. And so some things, the higher the value, the more they cost. Whereas it's good practice that is on the road to practicing, quality ethics to be able to always point back to your sources, and it's building your credibility as a result. Let's take a break. We're just getting into questions. We've got many more questions from other folks. We're excited to dive into that in our digital media literacy asynchronous lecture series. Hang tight.